to council to move forward with concept layout, parking concept layout C, which is included also in your packet. That was brought up with to council, city council, but at the same time, the committee had made a request to have staff and Matt work on an alternate plan that hopefully, address some of the comments and the issues and that we discussed at the last real property meeting. So even though concept C was recommended to council, we're still waiting to have an opportunity to review another layout. So that's what we're here to do. Matt is here, and we can talk. We can hear from him some of his interpretation of the comments he heard from council last time that we had this conversation, and see how this parking layout may meet those needs and desires from all partners, and hopefully we can engage a conversation about this option, and ultimately whether or not the committee feels comfortable making a recommendation to city council. So that's basically where we are. So I'm hoping to get additional direction from the committee that we can bring to council for a thorough discussion about next steps.
Okay, thank you for teeing that up. And for those who may be watching and listening, there is a packet out there with the deck, with the agenda that has all of this information in here. And I'd like to note that we do have, I think, option C, which was the committee's recommendation to council. It's attached to this. Option E, and also this latest option that we're getting ready to discuss, which is G. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so what I'd like to do at this point, if it's okay with the rest of the committee, is call Matt Klein, the engineer, up to discuss this latest option with us. Is that good?
Agree.
Okay, thank you. Matt?
Hey, Matt Klein, 49 Immigration Street, Charleston. So thank you guys. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. And we were able to sit down with staff, or we met on Teams, but we were able to get on Teams with the restaurant staff and kind of go through some of the concerns and try to mitigate. And I think y'all may remember the last time we had the special meeting. I exited the meeting saying that I really liked the turnaround in the city resident trailer parking lot, or the city resident parking lot. I love that turnaround just from a strategic standpoint of getting cars turned around, not a dead-end parking aisle, which was shown on the C layout. And I also liked just, but the concern that we had with that specific layout was there wasn't a dedicated entrance to the restaurant. So one of the things that we did was, with regard to this newest layout, it looks very similar to what y'all remember as
Matt, will you just be sure to talk into the mic?
And you can, it's wireless, so you can grab it.
Yeah, you can grab it and talk.
You'll feel like a performer, but
Right.
it's okay.
I'm just an engineer.
Yeah, right.
So
Thank you.
no problem. So one of the staff comments was to discuss making this parking line up just so that it was clearly back to back parking. We really cleaned that area up, cleaned up the lease line. I think that was worked out with the restaurant folks. We show the 6-foot boardwalk that was planned behind the bulkhead. I call it it's the header for the seawall. There's a board that runs flatways. That's on the survey. That's what's white right there. The hatch is shown as a 6-foot boardwalk on the back side of that. We show resident kayak storage now on this inside corner, and the goal was to clean up some of these items as well as add a trailer. We added one trailer parking spot to the prior G layout, the prior E layout. One thing that changed on the resident side was they have a loading zone that's right here, and we tweaked these parking spaces to a slight angle. You can see the severity of that angle with that parking space right there. It's not much of a rotation, but it allows for additional maneuverability in this corner and it allows the truck a little bit more maneuverability to unload and back up to that loading zone. So, pertinent to all of the conversations, the trailer parking spaces went from 6 to 7, and this is a more defined primary access for the restaurant, so that it can be gated, but it doesn't seem as choppy as the prior layout did. So I don't have the specific stats on the changes to the actual parking counts. I believe that everybody benefited by this layout and I may be wrong about that, but I think that we added 1 parking space to the restaurant. I think we added, Desiree, do you have that?
So that would take the restaurant from 105 to 106, is that correct? Does that sound right?
I counted 106, so that's.
Yeah.
I think that that's the case. I think that this layout added 1 trailer parking space. I think it added 1 restaurant space, and I am not sure if we added anything to the. I think this might have stayed the same.
2 trailer. We had 5 trailer before. Now there's 7. Yeah.
5.
Didn't we make the entrance where the green space was larger up at the top?
Yeah, we,
This got reconfigured in essence to allow for these parking spaces to line up, and we reconfigured we reconfigured the accessible path just to go straight to that boardwalk. We did show that boardwalk. This specific green space right here didn't change very much at all. It was set. This green space right here was set because the corner of this parking space kind of gets close to a 20-foot buffer off of that wall. So in theory, you have another room for another parking space right here. I kind of left it alone just because it does touch that buffer. I know that we can probably put a parking space there, but
I think that our goal was to create a sense of arrival.
yeah, that's right.
An area that's wider than the 20 feet at the end of the, where the public dock will land. We're trying to match a concept that was done by Kelly Messier, Davis and Floyd, ATM's working on the public dock. But the idea would be to have, a flagpole in that area and just a sort of the entrance to the green space in the public dock. So I think that gives a little bit more space to create that. So this parking plan, going back to where we started with layout C, had 10 trailer parking spaces. The other option preferred by restaurant folks had 5. This one has 7. So it's increased two more trailer parking spaces from that, but then 3 less from, I guess, the other alternative that the committee
Right, well,
recommended.
that's what I'd like to clarify too. We talked about going last time from 5 to 7, but realistically, correct me if I'm wrong, but what we recommended to full council was option C, which had 10 trailer parking spaces. So we're basically going from our recommendation, we're going from 10 to 7.
Correct.
basically
And
what
I
we're
would
doing.
say that I would just say that that is the benefit that you're going to see as a result of the reduction of 3 is this entire space. This space is much more usable and in my opinion, just from the circulation standpoint.
Is it possible for you to show us? So what I have done here is I've overlaid C onto G. So my blue outline is C. So I think it really shows. I mean, we're so obsessed over these 3 trailer parking spots. If you look at this as an overlay, I mean,
Kate, you need a microphone.
C is so narrow, and it doesn't connect with the dock, and it's just a bad design.
I think this is a great
So I
illustration.
think it'd be really helpful if you could show that,
Is there any way to bring C up?
Yeah. It's the first one, Amy, in the packet. That one.
So one way of that illustration, and thank you for that, is if you look at these underground telephone lines right here, this is the edge of the existing gravel lot that's back there. It's actually asphalt, but there's an existing lot that's got ropes that are right here. That's an entire parking space. This current C layout is an entire parking space toward the ditch from that from that location. Thank you. And if you go back to the G, you'll see that it's an entire the new G layout, the location of the parking edge is one full parking space into this gravel lot, which is just the old shared lot. So like there's a substantial amount of more room given as incorporated into the public resident area for the newest layout. It does.
Versus C that you're looking at. You're saying that G has significantly more?
I could give you the
Space
stats,
you
but
show
yes,
them the picture that I drew. I
it
mean, I
is substantially. Well, this is a great illustration.
27.
It encroaches much further into that area.
The blue is C and the orange or whatever color that is G.
Dave, Dave, if you want to speak, I don't have a problem with that, but you need to go to the microphone, okay?
So C has 27. I think that the counts on that is 27 vehicle
Okay.
parking spaces.
And I think there's a reduction to G, to the new layout.
The
from
new
27 to
layout
20.
G has 23
Okay.
plus
Yes. So
the golf cart in the
Has
middle.
what is that, 12 golf cart in the middle?
Yes.
I think I counted 12.
So it's a slight, and I don't want to know, and the reason why I don't have any stats on area translation is because we're utilizing this area as the driveway for both. And so it's a shared driveway. So it's a reconfiguration of this blue area, and it just makes it more contiguous and closer to the dock, which I think is,
Well, it's
again,
also, it's waterway. It's almost double, if this was a house, your frontage on the beautiful spot, the waterway, is almost twice as big in G as it is in C. So, yes, you're giving up some space in the back that abuts a ditch,
yeah.
whereas you're getting the frontage space and it's making the whole area contiguous to the public dock.
And
Whereas
you're
in
able
C,
to turn around without having
and you're able to turn around.
The turnaround is like really my focus.
I actually pulled into somewhere the other day and got stuck and had to reverse back.
If every parking space is taken and somebody goes in there, it's not going to be fun.
Yeah.
And so
Amy, do you mind putting G? Thank you.
that's the intention and the reason that I like this specific
G.
The last one.
this
That one.
specific layout is
Okay.
as much about that turnaround as anything else that I've intentionally not kept up with specific numbers of parking spaces in this, and I did try to add with this layout. I tried to do an efficient layout, adding parking spaces to these trailers. And what I found was if I add another space right here, I lose this efficiency of this loop because it becomes tweaked a little bit, and that you start inching into these parking spaces, and you start really pushing the whole site to where you're losing more parking spaces for one trailer park. You can do it. It's just once you get to the certain point, it's not as efficient of a layout.
So would you say that adding one for every trailer space that you add to the 7, you're losing about 3
It's at least 3.
inside that
It's
other
at
lot?
least 3. It could be 4. You could push into this space, believe it or not, just with the drive aisle widths, the turning of the truck, and all of the things. And then once you start pushing into there, so the restaurant wants to use this area specifically to block off and park for their employees, and so that's the other item is that they are losing more than just the they're losing more than just just that 3 parking spaces. It really pushes pretty dramatically. It's 15 feet a parking space.
Got something, Kevin?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but C was the plan that we recommended to full council last week or last meeting.
Yes, sir.
My count with C is the restaurant had 105 spaces.
Okay.
So what you're saying is G, you're going to 106. So you're
Okay.
gaining 1 spot.
Gained 1 spot.
So, but the city and its residents are losing 3 trailer spots and by Desiree counts 4 spots in our private parking. So why are we going through all this G if the restaurant's only gaining 1 more spot? Is it
'Cause you
is
got
it the
2
spaces?
You got 2 extra trailer spots, and it's more efficient. I mean, that's,
Let's talk about the ingress egress. Is that what it's about? Is it about the shared driveway, so to speak?
The reason why I like this layout the most is the reason why I like any layout associated with this turnaround. If y'all told me and you said, Matt, you got to have 8 trailer parking spaces, I would not change anything with regard to that, to this, to the resident parking lot right there, and I would add a trailer parking space and reconfigure the restaurant parking, and I would reprint it. Like that would be my process. What I was trying to do was find the layer of efficiency where we had a good looking. It just looked like 2 efficient layouts. One of the comments from staff was that it looked choppy, so I tried not to make it look choppy.
That was my technical term.
But it did. You were
And that was
right.
on G, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You were right. It didn't have a dedicated entrance.
no,
No.
before G, that would have been whatever we looked at last time
C, I
before
think.
G.
Sorry.
We've had a
No,
number of
G-
them.
Sorry. Yeah, I'll have to change the
F,
numbers.
I mean, E,
but you're exactly
version
right.
E.
I don't. Unfortunately, I didn't think about it like that. Like I didn't. And I appreciate you saying that. It's not. It has not been my desire to add or subtract to anybody.
No, I get it. And the comment I think was either one of these other plans had 116. I forget which one it was. So I get that the restaurant wants to maximize their parking space.
Sure.
But by going from C to G, they're only picking up 1 space. So that's not a whole lot of difference.
Well, they're also
where we're losing some in our spots, not many, but some spots. So what I'm hearing is it's more of efficiency, getting trucks and trailers in and out. G versus C.
well. The other thing is you see that section in the middle, in that version.
Right.
The section in the middle, according to the restaurant, that was very important for them because it allows them to block those entrances and be able to stack vehicles so they can essentially double up the number of spaces in that middle section for their employees. Whereas the version in C, it still has 106, but 105 parking spaces. But this, they can go from 106 to, maybe 130 if they block those entrances and are able to stack.
No, and the one of the weird things about C to me was all the golf cart parking in the middle. That just didn't look good.
Yeah.
But where are you replacing those? Because you drive down there on a Saturday and there are definitely a ton of golf carts. So taking that away, where do you have
Taking the golf cart parking away
on
from us.
on C? You had a bunch in the middle.
I think we discussed last time that golf carts can park anywhere. So I think he kind of said that.
Okay.
That
Matt, aren't they in
that
the
was my
Yeah, they're not.
understanding is that it's
The restaurant has, and Dave can speak to this, but they have expressed to me that their golf carts are not their priority.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave Lorenz with Islander 71. The thought is really with that, you can park golf carts anywhere. Just because we don't have golf cart parking, I get to play American Idol. Yeah, you can have, this can all be golf cart parking. I mean, that's our point. We're gonna, obviously, if you come down in a golf cart, you can take, this could all be golf cart parking. You know, we know that our residents are gonna be there. We take our golf carts down there. So we didn't say, hey, we wanna have specific restaurant parking because this gives us plenty of golf cart parking and car parking. This is what was really important to us. And what she's saying is we'll have our employees park in here, but we can stack them. So we could have 30, employees or more in that lot and stack them, and then those cars, we have valets to pull them in and out and stuff like that. So that C didn't make sense to have all that golf cart parking because we weren't able to do this. And so, one thing I'm just, from a win-win-win, I think, the goal from this whole project was to get green space. So we had that, right? We've got this that we all wanted to do, and we're all in favor, so that was a win. We now have dedicated resident only, which we didn't have before. I was there all summer, and there was a lot of people from not Isle of Palms that were in that lot. And then we have this, which works for the city, and then this works for the restaurant. So I feel like we're very close to being at a place where we're kind of there. And if we're kind of going to go back and forth over like 3 parking spots, or the restaurant has 1 more, or we're kind of losing the bigger goal, is just my opinion. And I think we're really close with this one. So, any questions while I'm up here?
The only other thing I wanted to make sure we discussed is looking at the dumpster, the location where the dumpsters are located. This plan moves them away from where they currently are into an area that is contemplated to be piped in the future. And that allows us the opportunity to shift the entrance, to shift 41st Avenue, and push it towards the ditch, if you will, so that we can segregate the trailer parking from the entrance. But that's something that we have to discuss, depending on, we know that the piping of the ditch won't happen until end of next year. We would have to find a place for those dumpsters for the restaurant to be situated between the time when we implement a parking layout and the ditch is piped. Because
which could be 1.5 years, 2 years before that happens, correctly?
I mean, yeah, we plan on starting the project on 41st next fall, winter, and those projects take several months to take. Our goal would be to finish it before the season starts on 2024.
Year and a half,
That's
basically.
right. So Amy, if you scroll down, keep the zoom as it is, but just scroll down a little bit down so that people can see. There you go. There you can see the dumpster location.
I would also add on the, this future addition of car parking over the ditch. We think we've learned that if that was trailer parking, it eats, like 1 trailer space eats like 10 car spots. So we do think that the most efficient use of those future spaces would be cars and not trailers. And we haven't really, from my perspective, kind of counted on having those spaces. And I guess I feel like we get through 1 more year with whatever we have, but then we're going to have 40 additional spaces added to the mix down there. So I think I would want to approach it with more of a focus on trailers now, because you're not going to be able to shoehorn in trailers at a future date, knowing that there's going to be a gross increase in the number of car spaces in a year and a half. Because you're not going to add, I think whatever you all add or recommend to add in terms of trailer parking now pretty much cements that is the only ever trailer parking that will be there. It's not going to go the other way.
So to not put you on the spot, but to put you on the spot, does staff have a recommendation?
I mean, it really depends, right? I mean, I think everybody's struggling with identifying what is the magic number for trailer parking. I think that, you know, if we had a number, we can clearly tell Matt, okay, draw a plan that shows these number of trailer parking spaces. I do think that, you know, with the change in operations at the marina, where we are going to have, you know, as approved by council, a boat club operations there. You know, Mr. Schuler has indicated a, you know, sort of his desire to disincentivize non-resident traffic to the island because it just it has a they have a lot of demand for space and they may not contribute that much as residents may. You know, they're purchasing in the store, they're buying fuel and whatnot. I just think it's difficult to know how the dynamics of the marina is going to change with his operation and whether or not 7 or 5 or 10 are going to be sufficient or maybe not. And I think that's the concern, just not knowing what the demand for trailer parking is going to be once that operation gets up and running. You know, one thought, and I don't know, I've mentioned it to John, you know, whether or not it was feasible to implement a plan for a season. I don't know how much money you have to spend to, you know, have a layout. You know, maybe let's say it's G or E or whichever you know council picks, and use this next season as a data gathering season and try to use that as a baseline of understanding what the demand for trailer parking from residents. Because I think the point has been made that the 12 trailer parking spaces that are there now are not exclusive for residents. And they are shared with vehicles. So I don't think I think we're comparing apples to oranges in a way. And until we fully understand, you know, once a space is dedicated for residents, how often is it going to be used? You know, I guess because a site it's so limited and it can't really grow, it would be a shame, you know, 2 scenarios. We have 10, 12 trailer parking spaces there and they're full half the time. And then you're kind of underutilizing very, you know, prime real estate, or we agree on 7 on 5 and then, you know, all hell breaks loose and it's just not enough. I just we don't know that until we kind of live through it.
Well, we don't, and thanks for those remarks. And from a staff point of view, I know you and Douglas have been intimately involved in this, along with the Islander 71 and certainly Matt. But I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty about all of this when you get right down to it. I mean, as to, you know, what's going to work, what's not. I keep going back to what I've heard basically is that, you know, and I've not heard anybody say anything different other than maybe on our committee from time to time as we discuss it, but people talk about needing 10 trailer parking spaces dedicated for residents. You hear that, all right? We even heard one council member at our last meeting say if it's less than, you know, 10 to 12, it's not going to make residents happy. Now, that may be somewhat anecdotal, but all of this is somewhat anecdotal, really. You don't really know what's going to work until we put something in place here. I have trouble moving away from having less than 10 free trailer parking spots for residents to begin with. I also have trouble just saying, hey, golf carts can park anywhere. I know they can, but on the other hand, we do have some people who are like sticklers when it comes to parking and say, I'm afraid if I park here, I may get a ticket. I think that there has to be, in some way, that we designate, and Matt's raising his hand, you know, there has to be some way that we at least distinguish or delineate an area that says, you know, golf cart parking here, it may be 5 parking spaces, whatever, and then knowing that people are still going to park golf carts pretty much anywhere they want to, any place they can find a space. it also seems to me that really it looks like to me the major difference here is the ingress and what we do with the the ability of delivery trucks to come in and out of here. And C was supposed to be a pretty good option, but then it had sort of a dead end sort of turnaround thing, and just G was supposed to maybe solve that somewhat to make it more efficient. But I like the idea of having separate parking areas here, basically. And with option C, can't we do the same thing, basically, that we have in option G in terms of the public area, with the kayak storage and all of that?
I think so. So again, we've kind of talked around about the magic number. And would it be, from my perspective, the group landed on 10 last time. Could the direction from your group be put 10 trailers in? And I think the rationale for that would be, that future cars are going to be able to park there once the pipes are installed and cars are allowed to park over that pipe. And we will just, we'll go back to see whatever the best solution is that accounts for 10. I mean, I think personally, I feel like I've heard you all kind of land around 10. Could that be your direction?
Well, that's
We'll
been
take
the
that back
consensus
to-
of our committee, but that hasn't been unanimous, and that hasn't been, the 10 has been what we've heard, but it's been, from another council member, from some people in the public when we had the hearing with Schuler, that sort of thing. Councilmember Myers, I know you want to speak, so let me recognize you.
Okay, first of all, there's no magic 10. There was none. There is none right now. There's no magical 10. If you ever went down there in the summer, there was hardly any trailer parking that had Isle of Palms resident stickers on them. Every single car that I ever saw down there in the summer did not have a green Isle of Palms resident sticker on it, okay? 10, you've come up with 10. I haven't agreed to 10, and there's no magical 10. C had 10 spots. We can't see the forest for the trees here. Like, I don't understand. You have just gotten it in your head that the restaurant wants G, and so you don't want G. I mean, it is a better looking, more attractive, safer. It checks every single box, and it has 3 less trailer spots. Also, I might point out that there's about 47 trailer spots right below this in the marina parking lot, which is the marina is for trailers and boats. That is the purpose of the marina that we just gave to Mr. Schuler. It's not like residents can't use that. So, I mean, I'm serious. I can't continue to have these conversations around and around and around on some magical 10 number. Like, it's just not going to happen. The restaurant doesn't have to agree to what you want in your 10. They don't have to. They can simply walk away from this, and we're stuck with what we have now.
That's right.
We do not have a magic wand to make this work. And to lose what could be a really nice parking plan that a lot of people have put a lot of time in, and Mr. Klein has told us over and over again is a better plan, over 3 trailer spots is absolutely asinine. That's it. I just can't.
Thank you for your remarks. Councilmember Popson?
Well, it's not about, to me, it's not about 10, 7, 6, 5, or 8. It's about maximize what we do for the residents. Get as many trailer spots as we can for our residents and parking spots for the residents. That's where I've always landed. That was the reason that I went along with Mr. Schuler, is because he's given up the shared parking. So we could sit and work out the best deal we could for the restaurant, which is an important tenant to us, and also maximize the parking for our residents. And so it's not about a number. It's about the most parking spaces, trailer and individual, that we can get for our residents. And the other thing, back to Desiree's point, a utilization. So let's say we have 10 spots and only 6 average are used. Then the city can always come back and say, okay, let's give 3 of those spots back to the restaurant to let them have stacked parking or whatever. Would the restaurant be willing to, if we land at 7 and we needed 3 more because parking was full, would the restaurant be willing to give us those 3 back? So I'm about maximizing what's best for the resident.
Is there any other discussion we need to have before we
Actually,
entertain?
one more thing about the whole golf carts can park anywhere. I think that that might be misleading. I believe that Mr. Klein's point on that is that a golf cart can park in a car parking spot. It doesn't have to have a specialized spot for a golf cart. You can park your golf cart anywhere that a car can park. However, if you start divvying it up and making teeny little spots that only golf carts can fit in, you take away car parking spots. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the reason that C had that little V that had the teeny little golf cart spots is because cars wouldn't fit there. It would have been wasted space, so they just put golf carts. Same thing, the middle of the turnaround in the resident, that's a handy spot because it fits golf carts, whereas it wouldn't fit a car. Is that right? Right. And instead you can get,
Matt, if you could, go to the microphone and restate that.
Yes, ma'am. The reason is because you could put 2 cars there, and the likelihood of putting 2 cars there and those cars not creating some encumbrance or hitting that specific location is very low. Whereas if you had a few golf carts, if you've ever been to Ripley Lake Marina or Ripley Lake Yacht Club, everybody just, you drive in, you park right there, and you walk over to the dock. It's very similar to that kind of arrangement. That was the idea there.
Thank you.
I also, just for the record, want to point out, so this version includes about 12 golf cart parking spaces. We have been utilizing some right-of-way space along 41st Avenue for golf cart parking. That's certainly an opportunity here because this plan does not assume utilizing the right-of-way on 41st. So you can see those white areas to the right of the road of 41st Avenue. No, I'm talking, Amy, if you scroll down to
Little-
41st.
to your
You're talking about the area down there that we
Organic
have
spaces.
golf cart designated parking for well over a year now.
That's right. That area can
Near the
continue.
entrance of the current entrance of the marina.
Yeah, that area could be designated as golf cart parking again as well. The marina area has 15 dedicated golf cart parking spaces in front of the store as well. Let's see, what else? I think I just wanted to point out those counts. And the trailer parking spaces along the marina area, there's 13 that are designated. The other 28 that are sort of in the middle there I believe, are meant for dry storage. But I think they could be utilized for trailer parking as well if
Matt, why don't you grab the microphone and just hold on to it?
Yeah.
Whether you're standing or
Sorry.
sitting.
That middle area is intended for golf for trailer storage parking. It's currently located in the lower left corner of this drawing. It's currently at the dead end. You drive by it on the right. There are currently trailer parks there, and the intention is to relocate those to that specific location. I would assume that those get utilized by resident, non-resident, people who pay the monthly storage to keep their boat in that location.
And if you all recall, the lease assignment requires a minimum number of dry boat storage for residents. So just, I don't remember now what the number is, but there is a need, a stipulation there. And Mr. Schuler has indicated that The trailer parking spaces more than likely be available for residents because he's going to be disincentivizing off-island trailer traffic here. But it is not a requirement in his lease that those be just for residents.
Okay.
So,
Councilmember.
yeah, quick question for Matt
Yes, sir.
on G, Schedule G.
Amy, can you put G? It's the next one.
So just to point out, Mr. Popson, you see how it was a little, the previous plan that you saw was a little choppy up there in that entrance. A lot of that was trying to clean that up and make it look nicer with a single entrance and that kind of thing with the newest plan. I'm just
Yeah, and I was hung up before on the resident parking being private enough by itself. However, looking at this, I might could get over that because of the flow of how the trucks come in. So let me ask you a silly question. Is there any way to get 2 or 3 more trailer parking for the residents utilizing G?
I absolutely can add trailer parking spaces to this layout if that's my direction. Yes,
And
sir.
Just 2 or 3 more, but it doesn't affect their 106.
It would reduce their number.
Seems like each one takes away about 3 from kind of rough
It
guesses.
will-
It's
and again, I think. So I'm sorry. Mr.
I'm
Hobson.
just wondering, you come in, you have that little median that's
Yes, sir.
right there.
Yes, sir.
Can that median be shrunk to where you can shift the truck flow over to where you can then get a couple of more? Is
Every-
where I was going with
Yes, sir.
that.
Every one parking space will remove car parks. As you mentioned, C layout had 105.
Right.
This layout's got 106. It could be that one additional trailer park would be a reduction of 2. And then you can say the next one may be a reduction of 6.
So
Something along those lines.
so back to what's the magic number for the restaurant, right? I mean, I believe that their main need is their ability to stack.
That's correct.
So
That's what they have-
if you
that's what they have conveyed.
maintain the ability to stack, you probably are doubling the number of spaces in that middle section because that's where the employees would park. I guess from the restaurant's perspective, what is the minimum number of vehicle parking spaces that you would need, knowing that you would maintain the ability to stack vehicles in that middle section, which turns your number, higher than whatever would be delineated and seen in the plan. I guess that's an important piece that we would need to know, because if you're saying every trailer space added reduces their counts by 2 or 3, if we add 2 more trailer parking spaces, we're assuming that you're eliminating 6, so you have 100, but still having the ability to stack in the middle, which would put your 100 spaces to maybe 120 if you can add 10 more vehicles in that middle section by stacking. Am I making any sense?
So there's about.
I'll take that as a no.
There's about.
get to the
I heard
final
you.
stack
I heard you.
Yeah.
And effectively, there's about 7 parking spaces, double stacked, 14 parking spaces going down both sides of those aisles. So like you got 14, 15, 29 plus 14 more parking spaces in the aisles if there was blocked off, in theory.
So in
Like-
theory, they could add 14 vehicles in that middle section by stacking them.
Mhm.
So does that, Dave, I don't want to take over the meeting, but does that make you all, does that provide in your mind some flexibility in that total count if that was the case? Because I mean, at the end, that's what we're going to. Adding
Is that a
trailers
question to Mr. Lorenz?
to Mr. Lorenz, yes.
Okay.
It sounds like if you're asking to have Matt do 10 spots, to do the 10 spots and let's see what that looks like is kind of what it sounds like everybody's saying.
Yeah, I think, and we can, by drawing it out, we know what your total number of counts would be, and then to that count, we could add however many vehicles could be stacked.
So would y'all, also the other thing, while I'm just sitting back here looking, I mean, I don't know if this is options, if we're trading, we're talking about trading spaces that we've kind of been doing. If, this was to come down or you do that, would we be able to pick some of these up here? And I know this gets into this, but when you talk about people using this lot, there's going to be a lot of residents that use this lot. I mean, our restaurant doesn't just cater to off-island people. Most of the time, 70% of the people there are island residents. So I just think we got to think about that. I mean, they're going to utilize, a lot of residents are going to utilize this space. So that could be an option. Like, do we know how many we need in here? And then maybe there's a way to reconfigure that. If we, you take some of this and then we capture some of this up here. That's a thought.
So, also just kind of thinking about flexibility, using those spaces with flexibility in mind. Matt, would there be an opportunity with the way those trailer spaces are currently lined up, if the city were to want to kind of mirror the way Brian has done it, where those spaces are trailers only until kind of 5, 6 o'clock at night, and then cars are allowed to park? Could that orientation allow a car to pull in from the north side on one end, and then from the south side on the other end, and be bumper to bumper, and allow, after dark, those spaces could potentially be used from restaurant customers?
Wow, that's pretty aggressive. But it it absolutely could, and randomly enough, this layout, again, part of the reason why I like it is because of the flows and the circulation. You could frankly block this whole thing off till 5 o'clock, except for it would mess with your truck. It would mess with your truck, but it may not be any worse than C in reality, because they would be able to turn right through here and they could make that U-turn, I think. Absolutely. That could be an option where this gets blocked off. If you look at that line, it almost functions with this line right here. That could be something that could be discussed or explored. I don't know how to draw that specifically, but
I guess I'm thinking if the plan added 3 more trailer parking spaces, but the restaurant gained the flexibility of all 3 of those, or all 12 of them, becoming 2 car spaces kind of after the trailer crowd is dried up, maybe that's a solution that helps both.
You would have to make sure they were gone. There would have to be a towable situation where they can be towed out.
I'm not suggesting that we regulate it, but that once a time trigger passes, you can then put a car there.
So-
Not that we're going to tow everybody, but if a space is available at 8 o'clock at night, you can start putting cars in there.
Well, the functionality works, but again, so there's 2 things that I've heard, and Dave's correct that I would need to draw it to be able to tell what the actual number if 10 spaces were added to this specific layout. Doug is correct that if they're truly going to close the parking lot until 5 o'clock, then there could be an option to work out a shared landmass situation that it has a trailer function until a certain time.
I think we're trying to get away from the shared component.
Say what?
I think the fundamental issue I think that has existed at the marina side is the concept of sharing between different uses and how
Right.
it's equitable and managed, and that's sort
Right.
of the reason why I think this plan was
I understand. But it
um,
also serves to your function
yeah,
with not knowing
that's
and
right.
being able to explore these options for a limited time basis to see if 7, 8, 9, 10 is enough.
Yeah.
It serves a lot of purposes. It's aggressive, but it does serve a lot of purposes. I don't have anything to say about it.
I don't know if aggressive is good, bad, indifferent. I'm not sure what.
I like it. I like it. I like it because it goes a long way to solve a problem, but
So thinking about the flexibility issue, when this is all said and done and we come up with an agreement on this, is what is the intent? Like, what is it, the material, like how difficult? I mean, are there going to be curbs and concrete, or is this, like, I'm looking at this and I'm seeing the little white areas and I'm thinking, is that going to be like hardscaping, landscaping, curbing, like?
So we're doing this on the marina side at this moment, and we're going through it meticulously to try to look at every little space as it currently exists, and see what needs to transpire in that specific location. The goal is to try to make as minimal changes to the land surface as possible, and this functions really well because it's from the restaurant all the way to the ditch is basically improved. So there would be, depending on how much the restaurant wanted to go in, and our goal is being able to identify parking spaces on the marina side. It's being able to actually be able to stripe the ground. That's difficult. That's kind of the goal over there right now. But this specifically, it would be up to the specific person in the blue line or the red line, in my opinion, to decide how much they wanted to, or what they wanted to do. There's plenty of opportunities, as you know, that currently exist to park cars out there in its current configuration. Is and we've done gravel lots over in Sullivan's Island that function really well with parking dividers. And the little poles that tell you the QR codes to pay to park. But that said, it just kind of depends. We would look at each one of the specific locations to determine what the end product needed to be. We would probably make the ADA parking concrete. We would probably mill the asphalt that currently exists and disintegrate it against the restaurant for a better solution, but that would be kind of up to the restaurant as far as I would.
I guess, my question is, if we picked something and a year down the road, we realized it wasn't working for one reason or another, are we talking about ripping out concrete, or are we talking about moving a couple little signs in place?
I would think you'd want to save the money and not do curbing. You wouldn't really need it.
Yeah.
We're not
So-
planning on, we're on the other side, we're not planning on any, there's no curbing, it's just trying to mitigate. For instance, there's asphalt that goes in right there where those parking spaces are. You want to mill that asphalt so you don't have people like driving through that space. Like you just want the improvements to match. Once the plan is implemented, whichever plan is decided on, you want the improvements to match where you're trying to go. And
Right.
and so what I was talking with Desiree was that the interesting thing about the immediate implementation of this specific plan is the entire back lot that currently exists and is currently delineated could be then easily transferred to the city with no expense. It would be immediately available. It's already got access. The blue line is outside of that area, so there's a little bit of you would not have all of your usable area, but in reality that would significantly, and you could rope off. This is easily roped off. It's already improved. So in this plan, this is the spot that concerns me about not being improved, that needs to be improved to be able to utilize this plan. That's not a big deal. You know what I mean? From a land development plan standpoint. you know, it's not, you wouldn't want to do it immediately, maybe. You maybe want to see about the trailer parking or some other things, but this is the space that's currently being used as a asphalt parking lot.
And for the
So,
restaurant.
Okay,
Oh,
go ahead,
so
Desiree.
sorry. Well, I guess I'm trying to continue to get down, as deep as we can in trying to get a parking counts, and from the restaurant and from the city, obviously. But we said adding 1 trailer parking spaces means reducing 2 to 3 vehicle parking. Dave, from y'all's perspective, knowing that the 23, 25 vehicle parking spaces that are currently in what would be the city lot, those would be available, to residents at any time. I'm assuming that some spaces are going to be public so that other members of the public can also.
You're talking
park.
about this?
I'm talking about the blue area, because of the dock, it's a public dock. So we want to keep a handful of parking spaces for, general members of the public, so those spaces would be available for, there's nothing to say that somebody can park there and go to the restaurant. Same as the 20 or 30 parking spaces along 41st, once we pipe that ditch, those would also be public spaces. Does that change the dynamics in how much flexibility there would be in what would be under your lease premises by reducing those counts?
Yeah, I mean, it could be, depending on, I don't think we know what the plan is for how do you control this? How do y'all plan on controlling this? Like, how do we know it's a resident there who's going to enforce it? It'd be the same with that upper lot too. It's, easier, I think, for us to do it, but like this summer we didn't. I mean, there's a lot of people that parked and went on boats, parked went over to Goat Island, and it just kind of happens.
So Dave, you all would rope off your lot until 5, correct? So you would have complete control over the red, and then I guess the blue would be a little bit more of a free-for-all that I think we would police with
Yeah.
the police department just issuing tickets, I think.
And that is one of the benefits that we have of our space, is that our police department can ticket, correct?
That's right.
In the blue area.
Councilmember Popson.
One other thing.
It's awkward.
Just rip it off of there.
Kevin Popson, resident 732nd Avenue. So my point, or where I was going with this is, so could we get another trailer in here? Okay, not everybody has a 28-foot boat. Some people have jet skis. So could we get another one in there? Can we shrink this median, move that over, get another one there? Can you pick up spots by cutting this median down? There's another spot. Cut this one down. There's another spot. Cut that one down. There's another spot. Cut that one down, another spot, and even give us one more spot here. Could something like that be done to help offset giving us a couple of more? I'm just trying to work it out.
What is the point of those white spaces?
The intention behind why we show everybody that ever looks at any plan that I develop tells me about my white spaces and how they are underutilized land masses. And the reason why they're there is because if that sticks over, to your point, not everybody has got an F-150. So why do we have a 20-foot parking space where you're only going to park a Prius, which is, 15 feet? The reason is because the F-150 inevitably parks there, and then you don't have a functioning radius on a turn, or that guy gets clipped. And so I'm not saying they can't park there. I'm just saying it's for maneuverability and issues. This specifically, you don't want people parked right here. All of this traffic will be coming out here. All of this traffic is exiting. You want this vision triangle. You want to be able, there was a discussion with staff that we discussed putting the dumpster area right here. But I really discourage any kind of improvement in this triangle for vision exiting this marina, exiting all this traffic is coming this way. You want to be able to see them coming. These people are not really going to stop. We could put a stop sign right here. That's great. But I'd like to have as much vision on corners as possible. That's just I can absolutely add one right there. I think it would be equivalent to a parking spot just because of the angle. I think it would be a 24-foot long parking space. On the 45 at 11 feet off, you're going to measure from this offset corner right here, and the length of the space is compromised significantly. I don't know that you could park an Explorer with a jet ski in that specific location.
You know, we're getting down into all kinds of details here. I mean, we're basically in the weeds, I think. You know, is there a way, I mean, we've talked about a bunch of different options. Is there a way to find us 10 trailer parking spaces for residents? Come back with a plan or whatever that shows what's left here, keeps the integrity of the stacked parking for the employees that's needed, and, you know, something that we can go to council with next week and make a reasonable and a rational proposal to take a look at and possibly vote on. We've got to move the dial here at some point. And if we have to go back, if it gets refused at some point and we go back to the original plan, so be it.
Well, it has to end up at council anyway for the
Yeah.
full vote, so.
So is the question, what you all want to see is, you know, maybe have Matt draw up a plan that adds 3 more trailer parking spaces to this version and just be able to react to what it does to the top part, you know, the restaurant side, and then go from there?
Go
I
from
mean, I think
there
that
and also have, you know, in terms of the G ingress egress on the parking lot versus the C, as council member Popson had mentioned too, I mean, if that seems to work, that's fine. I could live with that too, but I'm also hung up on 10 trailer parking spaces.
I just want to ask and see what people think. Now it's my turn.
State your name.
Desiree Fragoso, Park Circle, North Charleston. So, and I can't reach, but you see how this top part of the green space, they've reduced, you know, it's less than 20 feet. Thank you, Amy. Right here. You know, if we plan on having a green space that maybe, and park that stops here in the line, and they can maximize this space, push these parking spaces towards the boardwalk. It's still, everything's going to be connected by the boardwalk. Is that something that you all would be okay with looking at? And I don't know if the restaurant's okay with that. I mean, correct. I mean, we maintain the entire green space all the way up to here. And then this area just, you know, you push the spaces back, and maybe that opens up. Thank you for indulging me. I'm just thinking, you know what? Okay, I don't know. A for effort, Desiree.
That's right. We're just trying to figure out how to skin this cat with a little bit of help, so.
G.
That is G. I don't have anything to add. I think that everybody is here doing the right thing, and so I appreciate everybody's time and effort. But I do believe that if and I'll say this like I said when we left earlier, just like you said, you know, the reality is I would prefer to add the 3 spaces to this layout and see what happens to the restaurant parks and just get you a number. And that's just the way I see it, as being the best. I see this as being the best usable, safest plan. And if it doesn't meet your goals, then I would still modify this plan unless you instruct me that that's not what you want me to do. But that's what I would choose. So I'm just letting y'all know that.
Can you give us like adding one trailer takes away X golf car, or X parking, adding two takes away Y? Can you
Well,
give us,
so
just give us
just
those numbers?
For Mr. Popson's, like, because you were right, we're starting with 105 in reality, right? Because C had 105. This is 106, but 105, starting at 105. If we add one trailer parking spot in the current geometry, you would be at 10, let's say 103, so it's a 2 reduction. I think, and I'm thinking, Desiree, from what John said on the telephone when we had this discussion with them, as far as that goes, when it starts pushing to the second one, you're losing 4, because you're losing 3, 1, 2, 3, but then you start cutting into where they're double stacking. So I would say that the second one is 100, and I would say that the third one would probably be in the 96 range, is what I would kind of say. Is you would be, let's say you're at 96 in the restaurant, 10 trailer parking spaces, and the Isle of Palms resident and public would not be affected.
Thank
So
you.
if that happened, could we,
Please don't quote me on those numbers.
that's what I was,
Right.
I'm not asking, I guess my point was, I'm not asking you to draw 3 more additions to this, but I'm just wondering, instead of, if you draw one with 3 extra trailer spots, could you just tell us what 1 more would have done and what 2 more and 3, without.
Best guesses of, you're going to get to 3 by the next drawing, but best guesses of what it would have been at 2.
For
and
If there'd be
one.
like an in-between, without having to, I don't know if you
Oh,
have to
yes, ma'am.
draw it
I
anyway.
can absolutely, I can draw one at a time and then tell you what the resultant is on this layout every single time with no problem.
Okay,
That's not a problem at all.
okay, I think that would be,
That
would be
That's
great.
usually helpful. That's no big deal.
Yeah.
That's
an easy,
So-
pretty easy thing for you to do.
correct.
Okay.
So, okay, just to make sure, do we tentatively agree at this point that we would look at option G and go back and take a look at adding 3 additional trailer parking spaces and see what effect that has? Is that what we're
That's what
talking
I'm,
about?
that's,
I'm
it
trying
seems that
I'm
to
just
me, that's
trying
what
to-
I'm hearing, yes.
Okay.
So we'll have a G1, G2, and a G3.
Or we might
Well, I
move on
would-
to H or.
I was, is that, so that's a good.
That
that's
makes
a good-
sense to me.
That's a good point. I can create the G.1, G.1, G.2, G.3.
Yeah,
And then,
Okay.
and then I can keep this one as G.0 starting point and then add 1, 2, 3.
I think that would be really helpful, just for like
Make it easy.
my brain.
Is that
like,
good with the committee?
Just makes sense.
Do you need a motion or anything?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Do we need a motion or is that just a takeaway that we?
Clear.
yeah, I think we're clear.
Okay.
And that, the G1, 2, 3 would come back to you all for a discussion, or I don't know if Matt was gonna be
I
able
think
to
it would
have
have
that.
to. I think council's gonna direct it back at real property, quite honestly.
So we'll,
More sense to
yeah.
do this again instead of doing this in front of the.
Right. I think so too, Councilmember Myers.
So we'll plan, once, I'll let Matt, not on the record, tell me when he can get that back to us. And once we do, we'll try to schedule another meeting to have a conversation and look at those options.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
We really appreciate it. All right, let's see. Let's move on to item B, and that's discussion of installation of the ADA compliant elevator in the Marina Restaurant. So, Desiree or Douglas, do you all want to sort of tee this up a little bit? And I know you're looking at each other to see who wants to take the lead
Yeah,
on it.
I'll just give you,
Can I ask you a question before we start?
sure.
Was this the only estimate? How did we end up with this estimate, like just a history lesson?
So Trident is, so I will say that when they were under construction, we went through a similar process of meeting with various elevator contractors. And actually with Trident, there were 2 elevator contractors there so there's kind of probably been 5 different groups that have looked at it. Trident, though, is who did the public safety building. We've had a good relationship with them. I think we felt like they do this type of work. We felt like they would be best suited for just kind of not doing completely pro bono work, but basically that's what we wanted. We wanted somebody that we trusted and that we could rely on their kind of expertise. Having said that, this very much is still a guess. I mean, it has not been designed. There definitely would need to be, if this is a direction council wants to go, we would need to hire designers. They would develop budgets. So this should still be seen as a very rough estimate, but we have confidence that it would be close.
When we say a rough estimate, does it, I did look over this kind of macro proposal, I guess you'd say, given what you just mentioned on just standard estimate report or whatever. Do the fees involved in this, the 300 to 350,000, is that separate and apart from what we'd have to pay for design?
I think so.
Okay.
And
so-
Trident did a similar process with us with the fire station, where and I will say they were
Very close.
They were close, but they were also conservative. They were pretty all-inclusive.
Yeah.
But I think there would be some design cost added to it.
Right.
You would require that, wouldn't you, Douglas?
Yeah, there'd have to be.
Engineered stamp
Yeah.
plans?
Yes, and they wouldn't build it without it,
And
So
you
that-
would say it would be about 10% of total construction?
probably.
So you could add 10% of that 328, and that would be what we could expect to spend on engineered plans and designs.
So we'd be chasing $400,000 on the top line for this.
I mean, this estimate seems insanely high to me. I mean, I
Yeah, they put 30,000 in escalation and contingency that probably would come off.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that it, and quite frankly, I would say this is, from looking at all the permit reviews and what just a swimming pool costs today, this didn't shock me at all. I mean, I felt like it would be somewhere in this range. And it's a commercial building, it's a commercial elevator. It's just not a cheap time to do anything.
Well, a couple of questions on that. Does it have to be by code? Do we have to have a commercial grade Lula elevator in that location?
We do not have to, but if you were going to, it doesn't have an elevator now, but if we were to build one, yes, it
You
would
would
need to
have
be,
to, yeah.
it would need to be a
Okay,
commercial.
so it's not, so this is different than, okay, let's use the VFW as an example. The VFW already has an elevator shaft, and they're gonna replace that elevator in the original shaft.
Right.
And it's gonna cost them, if I remember correctly, $40,000 roughly. And they have, and it's gonna have, it's a different type of system, I think, but it's gonna have about 700 pounds capacity, whereas this has 1,400 to 1,500 pounds capacity. Am I right? Am I kind of somewhere in the ballpark?
I think you are.
I don't know, I do not know the capacity of what the VFW is considering, but it sounds like you've looked at it. I would trust that.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, we
their
dealt with it.
their
I mean,
quote included
yeah.
that figure.
And I don't think we've seen actual plans from the VFW, but sort of almost anecdotally, we know what they're gonna do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
kind
they
of
have a
what they
quote
told
that
us.
shows the model and the capacity.
Right.
That was what they provided
Right.
to the city.
I'm just wondering, I think this gets back to what Councilmember Myers was asking too, is this our only option? This is like you could call it gold plated, but everything seems to be stainless steel. I kind of understand that a little
Yeah.
bit because we're going to be on the salt air, salt water, but does all that have to be included in this so that we have a top of the line, gold plated, and I'm just using that loosely, type of elevator in place when we could at least trade in or trade down without compromise for something that would be acceptable by code, fully ADA compliant, and serve the purpose that we need it to serve to go from that bottom to the top.
I think your point is probably accurate, that Trident, when we had them do the fire station, it was definitely done. It was done right. It was done well. It was kind of the best materials, very well done. I would think that this is kind of akin to hiring a high-end builder who's going to do it kind of with high-end materials. And I think we even talked about with the elevator contractors, there are lower tiered things, but they're problematic. You kind of get what you pay for in the elevator world. So I think the assumption was we want, not anything that was exorbitant, but a long-lasting, reliable, high-value product at the end, and not to build something that was going to be problematic in 8 months, a year and a half.
I understand that. I'm just trying to understand their estimate. I mean, it says in their estimate, it says subcontract is $178,000, but the next page is the subcontractor, and his estimate's $76,000. So
I think that's,
so it's $100,000 more, one page up. And then there's an other.
so that's all the work to build the shaft. And there's going to be considerable work to build the shaft, and then Coastal Elevators is going to come into the shaft. They're going to come in and show up and put the car in that shaft. And I also wouldn't say this, again, this was, we asked them to really analyze the feasibility of doing it. This is not based on plans. This is not based on a bidding process. So that would be, I think it gives a very good indicator of what the final expectation should be. But if it's the will of council, the next steps would be hire a designer, get it designed, go out to bid, get, competitive bids.
Okay,
So that's not what this is.
That was my question. Okay, so
Yeah.
there's not been a bidding
No.
process on
No,
this.
This is
this
very
is just
much
a rough order of
informational.
magnitude cost
Right.
estimate.
And that's good feedback. I think we all get that, and I think also what was important to us, and I saw the letter that Dave Lorenz had attached in regards to, not being against an elevator per se, but also indicating too that there could be some interruption to business, that there also, from a restaurant point of view, in their mind, couldn't be any kind of cost-sharing situation with them paying part of the cost. And also that it would compromise some of the seating they had, I would guess, at two different levels. So I know that that's part of the deck that we have here today. And really our charge, I guess what we really try to do is what you all accomplished is that you got Trident out there, who is an expert in all of this, to be able to say, is it even possible?
Right.
something
I think that's fair to say. I think we've, at this point,
Yeah.
determined it's possible. I think the restaurant has determined that they're willing to have it there. They don't want, they're not in a position to share in the cost. I think we know that it's going to roughly be $330,000. And I think the next question is, do we proceed? And if so, what funding mechanism, how do we proceed?
All right, and I promise I'm gonna turn this over. But our premise also, when we brought this up again, was based on a meeting we had last October, November, where we talked about using tax dollars to do this, if we could find in any way a possible way to do it. That's the way we left the whole elevator issue. With Islander 71, is that we see now that there's no way from what we've explored, that you can put an elevator in, but if there's some future point in time that it's found that there is a way to place an elevator, like we're just talking about, would it be a possibility of using ATAX dollars to fund that? So any thoughts on that, Desiree, at this early point?
Well, if you think about, the city has been paying the debt service on the dock project and plans to pay the debt service on the dock project out of 75% out of tourism funds. So you're improving city facilities that are used by tourists. I would think that the same justification that we've used to use tax dollars to replace replace and repair the docks, the same would apply for the restaurant. We haven't really explored the legality of it. I'm just comparing one to the other. Both are private leases. They're a private operation, still servicing tourists. So I think that it would be eligible. So it's
And
really,
it's a city property.
and it's a city
Right.
building.
Yeah.
That's right. Just like the docks are owned by the city, they're just leased to a private operator.
Yeah.
But we haven't really spent a whole lot of time looking at that. Again, not seeing any glaring difference between the docks and the building. So it's going to be up to you all to decide whether to allocate funding from those sources to the installation of of the
I'm going to turn things over to the colleagues here to opine also, but I just early on here, I'd like to go on the record for us to at least, in my mind, I'd like to see us not drop the subject, continue to pursue looking at what our elevator options are to see if there's a more affordable way, to see if there are ways to fund this, and do so with a minimum of disruption to the restaurant operation, but, also be fully accommodating to anyone who is, disabled, and it does fit with our plans in terms of ADA compliance. We've been on record for that for a couple of years now, that we want to try to do everything we can in terms of ADA access, whether it be parking lots or beach paths or any city property, that we would try to go at least the minimum, if not over and above, to accommodate. So I think it kind of fits with those plans. So with that, I'll turn it over to Councilmember Popson and/or Myers to weigh in.
I guess I'm having a rough time with stainless steel. Why do we have to use stainless steel? I mean, you build docks with galvanized bolts, and gangways aren't stainless steel. I just don't understand why we have to go down the stainless steel route. It can't be a code issue. It can't be an ADA compliant issue. So is that something that I'm just missing something, or is it something that we could look at alternatives?
I know that when we were out there, the elevator representative said we would want, in this environment, you would want stainless steel. Beyond that, I don't know what the price difference is to know, did that add 10,000 or did that add 30,000? I don't know. So certainly something we could, if it was a route, if we wanted to progress with this and we wanted to engage a designer, we could certainly ask that question. What's the what's the cost differential versus the life expectancy differential? I assume that there's a value in stainless steel, and it's kind of like people question why we use e-pay, but then it seems to last 5-6 times as long, and it ends up costing twice as much, but in the long run, it's a lifespan issue that it does pay for itself. I guess that is probably the reason why, but we certainly could ask that question and see if it's really necessary.
Yeah, I mean, if the elevator is going to last longer than the structure around it, it becomes.
I think Dave can attest to
understand.
that.
I understand wanting to construct it well, but I think also that goes back to my original question of if we've gotten other estimates, because I think it would be really helpful to see what some other people come up with on this.
Well, and that was, Mr. Chairman, that's where I was going at. I think we should have staff at least look into what it's going to cost to get an engineer on board, because it all starts with plans. And see what that's going to cost us, get plans done so we could go to an RFP or a bid process.
And that would be my recommendation. I think going down the path, we can get some estimates. We currently don't have anything in the budget for this, but we are going to start working on our FY24 budget in the next 2 months. That's something that could be included as a priority, and we can allocate some funds for engineered plans and bidding, and knowing that construction won't really happen until maybe 2024 if we go down this path. That could be something that we can plan for in FY24. That's just a path. I don't know how urgent. We certainly, if it's urgent, we can try to see if we can find, we don't know how much it would cost, but we can see if we can find some money in our current budget, or council can allocate some funding from our positive net result from FY22. You know, there are options. I just need to know how quickly you all want us to work on this.
I don't see a great sense of urgency. And I mean, I like, whatever we do, I'd like to see us, at least, come up with the right kind of plan and the right kind of proposal. This is not something that we feel like is, in my mind, has got to happen right away. Because really, I mean, less than a year ago, we were saying it's not going to happen at all. Now we've seen that there may be a way to do it, and there's also a possibility of a way to fund it. So I think to my colleagues' comments too, if we could find, get some bids here in regards to design or whatever, get some ideas that way, and see what other options they have in regards to the type of elevator, whether it needs to be a Lula elevator, whether it needs to be stainless steel, whether it needs to be 1,500 pounds versus 700 or 800 pounds. Those kind of questions.
So if you all, I guess a suggestion would be, obviously the next step would be engaging a designer, just very rough orders of magnitude. If it's 10%, that would be $30-ish thousand. So we could go down the path of getting proposals to see what they come back at. We kind of assume we know about what they'd come back at, and then put some amount, into a future budget. You're about to start it's not going to happen. I think it's safe to say it won't happen this off season because we're in the middle of it. We haven't started. So I guess the target date would be next, whenever, January.
Well, they had a timetable in here, but that would have been for this year going into next year, which had them finished just prior to Memorial Day. So you just push that back.
Push it back a year.
Same kind of, I think the same kind of timeline you might be considering, but
Right.
Don't we have to, isn't there a process that has to go through for this dollar amount?
The design?
Well, no, the actual
And-
FRP.
Yeah, we would put it
Yeah.
into the budget for next year, and then once we actually had bids, it would come, those bids would come back for your consideration against that budget.
Yeah.
Next year.
So I think we kind of have to wait until FY24,
But that,
Yeah.
but like-
allocate it.
But it's not that we're not dragging our feet.
No.
We're going about this is really the process. That's how long it has to take, right?
And I
mean,
think
that's-
between now and the time we finalize the budget, we can have more concrete proposals on design and engineering. And that could be the guide that we use to allocate that money in the budget, and then you all would approve it so that we can get them engaged.
Dave, is there anything you'd like to add to the discussion on this? Or if you want to go to the microphone, comments would be appreciated.
No, thanks. No, I think it's just the timing thing is, realistically, and Kevin knows this with construction. We're getting close to a few months. We're going to start kicking back up again. So all I would ask is to try to do it off season, which 2024 seems right. So the planning, and then it could be early 2024 if it's in the budget and all those kind of things. So that's just
Would
timing is
January,
key.
February be your guess?
Probably, yeah.
That would be the
We're
ideal.
in uncharted waters right now.
Yeah.
We haven't seen
Had
that
either
yet,
of
but I
those
would
yet.
imagine January, February is kind of
Okay.
when you knock it out, do the actual construction.
Yeah, because
It'll
Trident,
take out a lot of the space in the upstairs and the front.
Yep,
you know,
be a
which-
mess.
Trident's construction was a month, looked like, once they started.
January, February would be key.
So
for
allow
us.
allow 2 months.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Dave. All right, so we good?
Yes.
Okay. No motions needed or anything like that, so.
Do you want us to start getting architectural proposals for your consideration?
I would vote for that.
Yeah, do we need to vote on that?
if
Or do
that's
we
the
just-
direction.
Yeah. Doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. There's no downside if y'all want to
Okay.
make a motion.
Because we have to fund, it has to be paid for, right?
Yeah, and that will come back
You
to,
want to make the motion?
It starts with plans, so.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion that we pursue plans to build this elevator.
So we'll seek proposals for the design and engineering of an elevator.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor? Say
Aye.
aye. Aye. No opposed, so that's passed. All right, no executive session needed. And-
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor? Say aye. Aye.
Record at 3:33.
No, we're gonna have to wait until Matt gets back.
We will be back together.